Alright everybody, this is my 1982 Honda Magna VF750 V45 4-cylinder quad carb motorcycle. I've been having some problems with the carburetors actually flooding the cylinders, and in trying to figure out what was wrong. It's a very odd problem that I believe is only for the 82s and 83s, and this is what the problem is if my fix didn't work. So I have my fuel tank, and this is the reserve fuel tank. This is the fuel pump. Fuel petcock. Fuel is on right now. Main fuse, starter relay, new battery. This motorcycle was purchased in 2001 from my distant relative. Got the carburetors professionally rebuilt by a Honda dealer, and I rode it. Spent a lot of other time working on its miscellaneous small problems, and then didn't touch it for another 6 years. So as I'm fixing it up, I am paying for not running the fuel out, and this is what the problem is. There was a full tank of fuel in the reserve. This is the carburetor box. Let me get a flashlight. The the air filter would normally sit transverse between these two bars of the frame, and then there's the fuel box. Inside, pardon me, there'd be this plate sitting over these two port covers, similar to that. I was getting a lot of fuel coming in, and if you look at the angle of this intake boot right here, there's actually fuel coming up to this point and free flowing in and choke out the motor. I found this was an issue before I had the air filter off, when at the collection point down here of the muffler, I was getting a lot of fuel and oil product and carbon deposits dropping out and flooding out. I had a lot of fuel in the exhaust. It turns out the problem is that underneath this baffle there are two ports. This in the rear, not the one up top where my finger's pointing. That's the crankcase ventilation. There's this port, and then this port. And what these ports are ventilation to atmosphere points on the carburetor, which is the back end of where the float is, to allow for vacuum release. In later models of the Hondas, these don't ventilate into the air box. They ventilate out to nowhere. The problem I've been having is that because the carburetors are gummed up in the float bowls, I'm actually getting raw fuel pushing up there, pushed by the fuel pump. So I've been trying to flush a lot of carburetor cleaner through them, and whatever I can to not have to take the carb box off, because my understanding is it requires taking off the radiator and then resynchronizing the carbs once I'm done. So we're going to see if my fix worked. If it didn't work, you'll see what my problem is. I'm going to turn on the motor, turn on the battery. We're going to go for fuel pump charging up just by flipping the kill switch. And we're going to go for a start. No choke, just for the purpose of showing this. My fix may have actually worked. Half choke. Alright, well, I'm going to come back to this video if I can find the problem. What the issue I was having, I'm really glad it's not a problem now. There are 4 carburetors, one for each cylinder. So they're oriented 2 directions. One cylinder's here and runs in line with my hand. The other cylinder is here, runs in line with my hand. These 2 front carbs were the ones that were leaking. The 2 front ones, I believe these are cylinders 2 and 4, have that vent pipe that goes to the front. Then on cylinders 1 and 3, The vent pipe is this one below the PCV vent. I was getting fuel coming back and flooding these cylinders. You can see that angled intake boot goes to this carb, the #1 cylinder. Luckily I didn't hydrolock the motor, and I did change my oil, and I got a lot of gasoline out of it. So this carburetor set was the problem. Here's just a line I put on to try and constantly bleed it, just into a dirty bucket. The other side I couldn't get a piece of line on like this. There is another gentleman on YouTube who ran a submersible pump with mineral spirits constantly running through. He just put it to his fuel line and then put fuel hose that fit very well onto these bowl drains, ran into a pan, ran it back up. That was my next try. That seemed to work out well for him. I believe he was doing that on an 83. One thing I'm also doing is I did try running Seafoam through it, broke up a lot, and also running this ethanol-free fuel. So we'll try it again, see if I can get the problem to come back. If not, we're in good shape. Alright, here we are back again. Get a little closer. The fix did not work. I'm going to just flip my kill switch, which when I turn it back on will start the fuel pump. And just watch. There it is. Raw fuel dumping in through that vent line. So the problem didn't fix itself. Or I didn't fix the problem. Now we're on the other side of the bike. Here's where I had the left side line open. You can see this was a white cloth. You can see just a little bit of the grit buildup that came out of the float bowl. That was by running carb cleaner down that vent line and tapping it with a hammer. So I got a lot of buildup. Can't get too much good focus. But you can see that's some gritty stuff. There's probably something stuck in the pilot line. One more thing about this bike. Just one more thing. This little nipple here, I don't know if this is the factory piece. It kind of looks like it is. It is actually the low spot on the air cleaner box. So if I get the fuel in here a lot, I can take this off and drain it. It does kind of make a mess, but that's just the way it is. So if I can get it fixed, I'll post another video of taking the air cleaner off and cleaning it and then putting it back on. Thank you.